And welcome to the Vonu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to coercion. I'm your host Shane, coming to you once again from the homestead here in Southern Illinois. This is a live stream, so as always, please feel free to drop any questions or comments you may have in the live chat. And real quick, please check the show notes for a link to BitChute and LBRY, LBRY. Consider following us on those video sharing platforms as I feel our time on here on FascistTube is limited. So on today's episode, I welcome Alma Sommer to the podcast. From our YouTube channel, Undocumented Human, we create unintentional communities for the next generation. We traveled in our 1986 Winnebago, doing off-grid solar installations for years before we moved to Texas to have a baby and find a sailboat. We lived on our Pearson 323 for 2 years, so we are now back to full-timing in an RV again. We live alternatively using cryptocurrencies. We unschool our kids who were born free-range humans without any government forms. Join our journey as we create solutions for a more free and sustainable life. Certainly a lot to dig into. We'll talk about her experiences and what she's learned from living these lifestyles, raising undocumented humans in the statist world, the Jackalope Freedom Festival, and whatever else we get to today. So without further ado, Alma, welcome to the Vonu Podcast. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you for having me.
Hey, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. So I guess first off, I've been familiar with you for a little while, especially Jackalope. I've been there for a couple of years, but haven't been able to make it out. Hopefully this year. Very, very interesting. I've got the show titled Lifestyles. I've been intending to have you on the podcast for probably a couple of years now to talk about those lifestyles. So it's good that we finally made that happen. So without, could you start by introducing yourself? Who are you, and what do you do?
Okay, well, I'm Alma, and I started Agris Marketplace was like one of the first things I did to kind of like quit my slave job and transition into an agorist life. So that was one of my first projects. I guess you could say that I was really inspired to start. And basically that was just connecting agorists for free on the website. And I got involved with like the Liberty movement through the Ron Paul campaign and things like that. But yeah, it's been 10 years now. I've been an activist, and I've been a mother for 5 years, going on 6 years. So things have definitely transitioned a lot in all of that time. But right now we're actually, we're not off grid per se, but we're out in the country in Snowflake, Arizona, which is about an hour away from where the Jackalope Freedom Festival is held every year. Because throughout my travels, I did a lot of staying in different areas of northern Arizona in the RV. And of all of the places I've stayed and the towns I've visited, I really love Snowflake, Arizona. It's just like a small little town. It's been there for a long time. And then on the outskirts, there's way more people than you would think. So it's actually like a big, small town. And I just kind of enjoy the atmosphere and the people here. They're friendly. They're open-minded. A lot of them are already free-thinking. Not a lot of fear of the virus or anything like that. People just continue on out here. There's nothing really different. Mm-hmm. So, it's really nice. I like it. And I actually am about to get my RV down from the valley and bring it up here because I've had my RV in the valley, and I just spent the last 2 months in Philadelphia through that lockdown, the beginning of the lockdown craze stuff. So that was an interesting experience for me and my kids to be in the city rather than in the farm like environment.
Right. So you got to experience both.
I'm definitely super happy. Yeah. And
I'm not jealous.
Drove them across the country. It's nice being back in the open land and around a lot of community that I have created here in Arizona. Specifically, I've been here most of my life. So, and I don't know, like, how the order you want to go here. Like, I'm kind of talking about right now, but I can talk about living on the sailboat and stuff, too. That was, like, a dream for a long time. I wanted to live on a sailboat. I followed all of the sailing channels and learned how to fix stuff before I could even be on a boat. And then once I was on a boat, I was, like, pregnant, basically, and just had Tate moving on to a sailboat. It was a pretty intense situation. That's like a lot of people actually will move off of a sailboat when they're about to have a baby. We moved onto a sailboat when we had a baby. So it was very interesting. She literally learned how to walk on a sailboat and climb stairs. And it was funny because we would be in Philadelphia on lockdown at the only park that doesn't have a fence around it that's open, and people are like hanging out drinking beers and stuff. And there's this bum who goes, "You need to put a helmet on her." And I'm like, dude, this girl learned how to walk on like a boat that moves with stairs. And then she lived off grid last summer, and she like climbed Rocky Mountains and stuff. And, you know, we've gone camping in all kinds of places where my kids are just like climbing these crazy cliff walls. And I'm like, ah. And, you know, it's just funny that like some people freak out over the littlest things. Whereas I, you know, and then I had a boy first. So that was like, oh, wow. Okay. I'm dealing with a boy. Like, what's this going to be like? And then when I got pregnant again, I actually thought I would have another boy, but then I had a girl, and I was like, what the heck? What do you do with a girl? So basically it's been an interesting, it's been an interesting ride, to say the least. But, you know, life is definitely a ride, and it's been very fun. And I love, you know, being able to unschool my kids and teach them all these alternative lifestyles that, you know, will hopefully benefit them in the long run. You know, I got involved with the community in Arizona many years ago because I learned about the Federal Reserve. I learned about the money. I learned about how it's all printed. And now watching this happen is just like, wow, everybody's getting Trump checks, and like people's food stamps are like doubling out of nowhere. There's just like basically handing out all of this money while I'm sure other people get much more rich, whatever that means.
Bribing him to stay quiet. Yeah, bribing him to stay quiet and not riot while they pillage the stock market and the entire economic system of the world. Yep.
I mean, and I don't know what they're going to be spending the money on in the future. We'll see. I mean, as far as I can tell, it's like submarines to investigate Antarctica or whatever. But, you know, that's just my opinion of things. And if you watch some of their, you know, the military channels, you can see what types of aircrafts are being created and what they already have there up in the sky, what they have in the water, and what they've been doing and what they're really doing. Like, I don't know. Let's ask more questions.
Sure. So I'm curious. I want to ask just a couple questions on the sailboat thing, because like I said in the beginning, we talk a lot about alternative lifestyles, and actually actually living them. So I guess could you walk us through it, like a day in the life on a sailboat, and maybe did you have any? I know I've talked to someone else who lived on a sailboat. They ran it. They had some. They've had some interesting I guess experiences on the water. Were there any crises that you had to face out there on the open ocean?
Okay, so we lived in Texas for the time we were there, but we did travel from Houston to South Padre, and then back to Houston, and then back to South Padre. So that was quite the trip. And the first trip we made down south, we decided to go into the Gulf on one of the they're basically like 8-hour little jaunts from like entrance to entrance. And so we decided to go into the Gulf this day, and like it sounded like it was good, like it was great, but it was really rough. It was a rough day. And this is not a normal day in the life of. A normal day in the life of was when we were like at a marina, and we would just wake up and drink coffee and hang out on the sailboat and listen to music. Those are great days. But like this one day when we went out into the Gulf, it was pretty intense. And Brian actually had to single hand sail because our kids were so young. I was down below with both of them, and I got seasick for the first time in my life. That was pretty intense. I had never got seasick while just normal boating around or sailing or whatever. Actually, I only ever got sick really while scuba diving. I have a tendency to get a little like lightheaded sort of when scuba diving. I think just because of the pressures and stuff. But I love it no matter what. I will always scuba dive. It's one of the greatest experiences anyone can have in life. So yeah, we ended up making it to the next port and got into this little jetty and like made it in. But like it was intense. It was a rough day, and like I don't know if anyone's really prepared for that mentally until they've experienced it, and then they're ready for it. So, and that only happened one other time when we were leaving Houston for the second time. And I had actually just found out a friend of mine had passed away from a high school friend of mine. And it was supposed to be good conditions, and we were listening to the radio and stuff, and we go out and it was intense from like the very beginning. And we actually had to do like an emergency call, not an emergency call, I would say, but I called, there was a yacht club there, and I called her, and she called the harbor master, and we told them our situation. We have kids on board, and they just let us in. And we ended up being stuck there for like a week in these conditions. It was crazy, but it was just time to slow down, time to make a stop, and you do what's smart and you do what's right. And, you know, yeah. So, but if I were ever going to sail again, which I do want to sail again, and I would like to be on a sailboat again, but I'm a big fan of cohabitating with other people. I will most likely cohabitate always in the future. So I would like to be on like a big 70-foot boat, or even a catamaran with another family or something like that, sail around the Caribbean or Bahamas, whatever, start in the Bahamas and then go to the Caribbean, something like that. It's beautiful out there. And even once you get to like Mexico and the Gulf, it's very beautiful. And I think you could make that port to port if you wanted to. And there are like beaches along the Gulf that have restaurants, you know, family-owned restaurants. And a lot of the families have family just right on the other side in the States. So like I had met this one girl that worked at a marina, and literally her aunt owned one of the restaurants that you could just sail to and then sail back. If it was a really super calm day, you could literally just go out into the Gulf and go to Mexico and eat lunch and come back. I don't know why that's not happening. I think the Coast Guard is actually pretty chill over there. They do have like what's called this big, huge spy blimp off of South Padre. And they put it up there when it's not windy. That I don't know what kind of radar information it's gathering, but it's definitely out there doing something. So, yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting just to think about all of this stuff, because like there's a channel called SV Delos, and they just got this new internet thing that like communicates with satellites, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of signal that's literally sending right to your brains. I don't know. I hope it's safe for them. I really do. But
yeah. Yeah, no, I'm curious. I'm curious. I watch a lot of those. I used to watch a lot more of them. But some of those sailing channels. Now, obviously, a lot of these folks aren't anarchists. So like they've talked about the rigmarole you have to go through to enter a port. Now, I was curious what your experience with that has been. Because if it's more like Mexico, where immigration is basically voluntary. If you get pulled over, you might have to bribe a cop, but it's voluntary. You don't actually have to check in with the immigration and the environmental, maybe like the EPA of an island or something like that. So could you speak to, I guess, maybe the interaction with the state that you had on the sailboat at all?
Okay, well, we did get boarded by the Coast Guard once, and I do have a video of that, but my kids' faces are in it, so I have to get it out before I can release it. However, if you go to my page Sailing Bangarang on Facebook and scroll through there was a meme that I made about getting boarded by the Coast Guard, and it has thousands of comments, and they were terribly rude, and like, wait till you're the next SARS case, that's search and rescue. And they put out like my AIS number, and they were just terrible. There was a couple like old Coast Guard guys that were retired that came on there to kind of like speak for the whole idea of the Coast Guard and how they got their rights and things like that. But I'm hoping I do get that video out just so people can hear the conversation that we had with them. Like, these guys literally are like stepping on my roof, and it's not acceptable behavior to be doing that. This is my home. This is what I live on. You're, breaking the Fourth Amendment, and you're literally invading and coming in here without permission. So unless you got beers and I accept your, rude, like, invitation from yourself, like, go away, like, get off my boat. So, and people just, lay down for that. They just lay down for it, and it's crazy. But I have another story I would like to bring up, and that's when I crossed the border in Mexico from Matamoros or Brownsville into Matamoros into Brownsville, I suppose. That's near the Texas border, and that was coming back in 2018 from Anarchapulco with our 2 undocumented kids. And when we came back, we had no issues going into Mexico. None while we were there. We even flew on a plane without any papers for the kids. The guy at security asked for papers for them, and we just said we didn't have any multiple times, and he just waved us by. And then when we got off the plane, they were like in our face, like, show us your papers, what with drug dogs and stuff. And I was just like, I have to go to the bathroom. And I just like went to the bathroom and sort of just avoided that situation. And then it was crossing back into the U.S. on foot, where they gave us I would say just a more challenging time, or more of a conversation, really. It's not like they won't let you back in when you're born in their jurisdiction. They claim you at birth, no matter if you have papers or not. It will always be a conversation. I think if anyone else does it in the future, just to have a well thought out conversation before you go there, maybe don't push don't let them puff their chest too much by pushing them too much. But basically the guy asked for ID. We show him our ID, my driver's license and Brian's driver's license. And he was like, anybody can get one of these. And I said, anybody can wear a uniform. And he didn't like that very much. And so he was like, I don't have to prove my citizenship. You do. And I was just like, oh boy. Okay. So then he was like, what about documents for the kids or something? And I go, well, we have their hospital birth certificates. They're not vital records forms. And so he's like, well, can I see those? And so I had to go to the side and pull those out. And I had my vital records birth certificate mixed in with theirs. And so he's looking at theirs and looking at mine. And he goes, I need to see this of theirs. And I go, we don't have those. And he was like, why not? And I was like, because I didn't feel like I had to answer any of these questions. I should have actually said that. Do I have to answer any of these questions? Mm-hmm. Whatever. So I just chose not to. There's your answer, buddy. So then he said, well, you need to get these. And I was like, whatever. And so then he let us through, and we went on with our lives, and everything was fine. And then I actually recently crossed the border on foot again without any, there was one more thing in the end of that. He goes, well, do you have passports? And I go, well, yeah, they're expired. And he goes, why didn't you start with that? And I was like, so my expired passport's more valid than my driver's license and anything else I have. It's just ridiculous, the whole thing. He just they just want to go in loops with you. I'm going to get you on this. I'm going to be the authority on this sentence and this sentence and this sentence and this sentence. And it's quite insane. And so, and I'm pretty sure the last time I crossed the border, they scanned my eyes and got my biometric data, which I've been in the military, so I'm sure they already have that. But if you do actually change, your skin and your body, and you shed these layers, whatever, every 7 years or whatever, if this thing is true, then it might be possible that even maybe your eyes change, because the constant collection of information, I mean, there are new people being born, but I just feel like they're collecting DNA right now. There's the eye scanning. There's all kinds of things going on. It's just so creepy. At the hospitals, They made a big deal about my children's cord blood. They really wanted the cord blood. In fact, in the first situation with Neo, I wasn't even really aware of the cord blood stuff. And when I left the hospital, after 3 days of being there, I found a vial of cord blood in the bassinet where some of my stuff was. There was no medical access to that area, for any reason. And so I feel like someone at the hospital was looking out for me and put that vial in there, because I had never said anything. It was so strange that someone would leave me a vial of blood, of my son's blood. Anyway, so then at the hospital with Tate, I told them I didn't want them to take her cord blood. And then they sent in, after I'd been in labor for 24 hours, I was already at the hospital. It was 4:00 in the morning, and they sent in 3 nurses to harass me about the importance of donating cord blood. And I'm like, get out of here. So I will literally like volunteer my services to be someone's advocate at the hospital, be their third party at the hospital if they live near me and I can go, or I will go if they pay me as well. Seriously, I will do this job because I think it's absolutely needed for women who end up or choose to be, to end up having a hospital birth. Now, here's something I learned later. The hospital still files birth certificates for the child without you signing anything.
Really?
And I've only recently now found out this information. So there is a like baby boy Sommer, and then like I think they call Tate infant girl Sommer or something like that. Because when I left the hospital after Tate, I left within 12 hours and against their recommendation. And I got a call from the birth certificate office saying, you've left the hospital without naming your baby. I would hate to infant your child. Your child has no name. So They might call her No Name. Actually, I think Neo might be No Name. No Name Sommer or something like that. And I know that my friend Kat Blythe, she actually got passports for her kids with those names that I guess the midwife had filled out on the birth certificates, baby boy and baby girl. So, and they were able to get passports that way. So I don't know. They try and just trap you every way. You're their livestock. They want your blood. It's a vampiric society. What else? Come to Jackalope.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's
It's so crazy.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's just a major inconvenience, and you kind of have to argue with the bludgies, with Border Patrol or whatever for them to actually let you back in. So is it more so just an inconvenience? You gotta be prepared for it and be I guess ready for the situation. I guess how would someone prepare for that?
Mentally, physically, emotionally, I would say that it's good to have as many interactions as possible. As an activist, I was always getting I used to give free hugs to cops. I was Love Police Arizona, like when I first got excited about activism, and I would give free hugs to cops, and I would have a megaphone and whatever, and did a lot of Charlie Beach stuff. But then there was times where I was at like a actual on private property at a market for a march against Monsanto. And this cop had told someone else to come tell me to move my car. And so I was like, what? And I went up and I confronted him and I was like, what do you mean I need to move my car? And he was like, you need to be 50 feet away from the center of the railroad. And I was like, that's not a true thing because this is private property and there's no way they're 50 feet away from the center of the railroad. And I know that private property exists and I can park on it. And let's decide where that is and let's talk about this. And so he came over, stood in the middle of the train tracks, pointed it at my car, and he goes, you're 20 feet. Well, there was at some point in the conversation, it must be 25 feet. And so he goes, you're 20 feet. And he turns and walks away. I go, so you're saying if I move my car 5 feet in, then we're good? And he was just like, yeah. And I was just like, all right, then, man, So it's just the more interactions you have with that, the more comfortable you get talking with people wearing costumes. Okay. They're literally just wearing costumes. That's it.
Right.
And so the government's paying them. You're paying them to wear a costume and harass you. No thanks. Or someone's paying them. I'm not paying them anymore. I do my best not to. The only reason I have tags on my car is because I don't want to get harassed while I have small children. The second my kids understand, what's going on, then I will be like, I will take these tags just off. I don't even think we should have license plates. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. We've talked about one aspect of security culture is role-playing police interrogations, and there have been so I guess some police. I think it was a Film the Police out of Atlanta. They have a really good video on YouTube of that. I feel like that might be a skill that could translate into and interactions with I guess document authorities, for lack of a better word. So I guess was there? So we've talked about your sailing. We've talked about I guess living out of the RV a little bit. I guess is there anything you want to talk? I guess could you tell us a bit about living off grid? Living the off grid homestead life. A little bit about your setup and how you enjoyed it and how was it liberating?
Yes, it is liberating. It's super liberating. I think that, I do see people doing it as couples and doing it kind of like more alone, some of them. There's even like single people like driving around in RVs, older people who make a lot of YouTube videos doing it all on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who wants to live off grid can do it. I still, after all of my experience, choose to live in a community. I think that, I guess maybe it's like a deeper thing with just what's happening on Earth everywhere, that the communities are going to be really important for any kind of like, I don't even want to say the word structure, but structure of like getting food that's safe. And I don't know, like, I just think that there's different like ways for conflict resolution as well as living in a community that you don't have to rely on the state.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. Like, I don't know, like I could go into this a little bit. Like, I'm actually going through a separation, or I've been separated from my kid's dad since last Jackalope. And, there's been interesting conversations where I'll just put it this way. I have kept up with my anarchist philosophies and he has not. And it has been challenging. So, I don't know. It's also been challenging because I've had the kids full time.
Yeah.
But the best thing about this is the community throughout all of this. And the community has been so amazing. My family's been so amazing. Brian's family, their grandparents have been so amazing. So, like, after all of this experience of, like, traveling and stuff and experiencing this, like, I just have so much, like, just, I guess, belief in community, how important it is, and how I want my kids to experience it that way as well, so that whatever trials and tribulations they'll have that community, those people surrounding them. I guess a lot of people go to church for that, and now like people can't even go to church.
Yeah.
I suppose they know where all their church people live and stuff like that. But I don't know. There's just something different about living in an anarchist community with anarchist philosophy. And, people don't want to be your ruler. They want to cohabitate.
You understand each other.
With you.
You actually understand each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most anarchists could be more comfortable living with any kind of status, really, than anything, because they're really just probably going to ignore them mostly, and you already have that mindset that, no one else is your ruler, then you just, you have a more calm feeling about it. And when you get into the situation where you can count on other members of the community for certain things, even if it's like tomatoes or potatoes or whatever, I think that, we're like, hey, can you come over and help me can, or, what, even just with stuff with the kids, sometimes it's been amazing.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the most important thing about it. And, when I started Jackalope in 2012, when I had first gone to Pork Fest, and there's like 1,000 community, 1,000 people community. That's amazing. And then I was even just as amazed the following year. And the following year was the first year we did Jackalope. And, the area that we do Jackalope in is free open forest. So anybody can camp there without any permission. You don't have to pay park fees or anything like that. And you can stay. Their rules in the forest are supposedly 2 weeks or whatever, but some people come and go as they sort of please. And a lot of people live in the area, and they have to check on their animals and their farms and things like that too, while they're, experiencing this voluntary community. But Jackalopes, it's had its transitions too. And I'm excited this year because, I went to Anarchapulco this year, and I I don't know, like sometimes you get certain ideas of events, and this year, Anarchapulco really like inspired me. And I actually was asked, I was volunteering this year, and I got asked to run the Fiesta patio, which was really cool. And there was like, we had MCs and DJs and karaoke, and it was just really fun. And it got me really excited about Jackalope, because I was like, I got to tell so many people about Jackalope. And, a lot of people are really excited this year to experience it that have known about it for a long time and haven't come yet. And so to me, that's just like really inspiring. And that's why I'm doing these interviews, to talk about, my experience with just everything, life. And I think that I learned like a lot about human connection at Anarchapulco. And there's this guy, Jacques, who does Vive. And it's basically, he's doing he dances. He's a dance party scientist. And I love that.
Right.
I love it. It's great. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. And I hope to see like a lot of that at Jackalope, more music, more art, more speakers, just anyone inspired to talk about whatever that is that they want to talk about. It's free to camp, free to vent, free to attend. There's a stage. I always put up a stage and get equipment for people to speak on. It's my goal every year, as well as marketing my Agris marketplace goods and services. So I really encourage anybody to come and bring their kids and bring their dogs and come and camp for as long as you want, and whatever, share your life with everyone else there.
Right, and I want to give you a chance, because I've heard maybe, I think probably from hearing you on other shows, but there's that the Jackalope is different than a lot of freedom festivals. There's a lot of organization with a lot of other freedom festivals. There's a lot of there's a lot of organization behind it sometimes. So I've heard that Jackalope is more of kind of a decentralized freedom festival where things just kind of happen, and that's what happens. So could you kind of speak to that and highlight that specific element?
Yeah, it's definitely spontaneous order. Sometimes I'll get a board and I'll put it at the stage, and people can kind of first come, first serve. But, you don't even have to do anything on the stage. You can host your own workshop. You can have your own production. You can make your own stage, and you can host your event at your own campsite. So the options are limitless, really, and the space to camp out there is limitless. You can camp anywhere. It's miles and miles of camping, open camping.
Right.
And it's like around 7,000 feet in the pines it's in between Forest Lakes and Heber Overgaard, Arizona. About like 7 miles in from Forest Lakes, 10 miles from Heber Overgaard. To get good cell reception, you do have to go up to the mountain to get decent cell reception. And then sometimes people will bring like boosters, and they'll kind of put them lower. So you can get reception in the meadow. Sometimes right where people camp, it's a little bit more difficult, but there's always people driving up and down to like go back and forth. And I always am encouraging a mesh network every year. So
Nice.
Working right now, possibly on getting it sponsored so that the person who creates this mesh network actually wins some cryptocurrency. So that's in the works right now. And I really would like to see anything pop up. Like someone says, hey, here's this network. I've put a couple routers in some trees and you can access this. You can access it at least right here, and you can come and check in and like post what you're doing at your campsite and where you're located or whatever, something like that. Something super simple. And I know that there's probably super smart, geeky people going, oh, it's so easy. It's so easy. And I'm like, well, there's people that are super smart and geeky that come every year, and I'm still waiting to see this happen. Yeah. I'm not the super smart, geeky person to make this happen. So it will have to be somebody else.
Right. Yeah. No. Just I guess a couple months ago, or just a month or two ago, I was just saying how we kind of need that mesh network, that alternative infrastructure. I mean, especially right now. I mean, an alternative to the internet would be fantastic, and mesh networking is kind of the solution for that. So, I'm not the one to come up with that technology either. But hopefully, someone out there that's listening to this podcast would be able to come up with some sort of a solution, because that's really, I mean, that's kind of the objective, right? Is building alternative institutions, alternatives to the state, and mesh networking. As far as communication, it's a pretty important one. So I love that, even as just a proof of concept, that you're talking about doing that, even just opening up people's eyes to the possibility that the internet doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different technologies that already exist. Even ham radio exists.
Right.
I seen years ago a guy at a conference talking about this device he created that he could plug into his USB port on his computer, and he was able to access multiple frequencies. Like, I think he could just tune into different ones. And I was like, I'm wondering if you could send, I think you can actually do this now, but I was wondering at that time, can you send a Bitcoin transaction like through, ham radio? And I'm like, if that is possible, then there's no stopping anyone who wants to be free.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I had Richard Myers on from Global Mesh Labs, and they're doing a lot of work with mesh networking and lightning, and using the Blockstream satellite, like doing a bunch of stuff so that no matter what happens with the internet, no matter what happens with the existing infrastructure, we'll always be able to send Bitcoin transactions. And I guess just to mention one other thing from that discussion, even communications or news over the Lightning Network. That stuff that's out there, and it's possible now. So things things are definitely looking like it's things are definitely getting more centralized in some ways, it seems, but in others, especially in the realm of technological development and some of the possibilities available there, decentralization is certainly on the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think decentralization actually has always existed, and it's just up to us to find the technology we need to create the environment we're looking for. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think all of the technology already exists and the software exists. So it's just really up to us to build it and build the communities that exist on that structure too.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. So, I guess with Jackalope, I guess just on average, just out of curiosity, how many people typically come out to the event?
So just so you know, one of my kids has joined the background noise. But to answer your question, it's been different every year. I think the first year we had 70, and then it slowly just built and built. I think we went over 300 a year 5 or 6, I think 5. And then I went and had a baby and I missed a year, and then I came back. And so I couldn't really tell you. We don't have registration. There's no way to track registration. However, we are teaming up with the State of Anarchy, and you can visit their website, thestateofanarchy.com. And there is a video about Jackalope that we put together. And you can actually register, although it is free. So you don't have to, but if you voluntarily want to, you can. And it is a way to see how many people come. It's one way. You can also hand out toothpicks, right, if you want.
Right.
See how many people come. But at least it's voluntary.
It's not to say that people couldn't use pseudonyms too to sign up, right? Because whether it's a pseudonym or a real name, a pseudonym or a given name, doesn't really matter for numbering, right?
True. Very true.
Yeah. Very good. So
I'm not going to be checking IDs.
Right. I definitely wouldn't expect that. So when is this happening? Happening this year? You said it's free, and it's in Arizona. And people can go to thestateofanarchy.com for more information. When's it happening?
It is August 1st through August 10th, and some people do stay the whole month.
Okay, very cool, very cool. Well, yeah, I'm hoping I can make it out there this year. We'll see. We'll definitely see. It's certainly a trek from Southern Illinois. I was living in Austin a couple of years ago for about 3 months, and I was hoping to make plans to come then, because that was the closest I've ever been. But hopefully this year, I've heard a lot of great things about it. I've heard Derek Bros talk. He's talked really highly of the event. And from the videos, I guess from some of the stuff I've seen from there, it looks like a really cool festival. So I will certainly put all those links in the show notes. Was there anything else you want to mention in terms of Jackalope?
Well, I was just going to say, if you are coming, I have traveled across the country with my 2 kids twice now, there to Philadelphia and back. And I feel like after doing that, driving anywhere is like nothing. So I think that, and if you need places to stay, I mean, if you go to the Jackalope Freedom, Jackfest, the Jackfest group on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, you can go into the Jackfest group and you can, communicate with people. Maybe you can camp on your way to Jackalope if you're traveling really far away. Someone might have a place for you to camp along the way, and or caravan. I don't know. Maybe someone's going to get a big bus or something and travel. That'd be cool.
Yeah. There's certainly options. There's certainly options. It comes down to trying to work it in, because my not real day job is we're actually going to open up to the public this year. I guess if businesses are allowed to open this year, I don't know. Well, anyway, but
yeah, we do have a Telegram. We do have a Telegram channel too. I think it's at Jackfest. It's actually, we moderate the people coming in that group, and then we'll give you the link to the actual Jackfest Telegram channel group, so you can communicate with. There's over 100 other Jackalope members in there, chatting it up every day.
Very good. I hope the event is great as great again this year. And I guess was there? I don't have any other questions. I really appreciate you coming on and telling us a little bit about your experiences living these lifestyles. I guess if for just as a closing question, would you recommend people pursue alternative lifestyles? I mean, has it brought increased personal freedom to your life? Is it recommended, even though it might be more difficult at times?
Absolutely. The skills that you learn and the abilities that you have are, I mean, they're just things that if anything were to happen, like, for example, they take out your electricity, they turn out the electricity, that in itself is like your food goes bad and you have no light. So I don't know, just even the smallest of things of being prepared really can help you in certain situations. And the more you know, the more comfortable you feel with whatever happens in this world, whatever people show you on the TV or tell you, on the phone, whatever, like you feel more comfortable with living this life when you're prepared to live like on this earth. And when you see things happening that are super crazy, I think it's important to be prepared. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah, and I had someone on. She's homesteading in Kentucky, but I had her on the podcast yesterday, and we were talking about this and how government indoctrination camps, they don't teach you any valuable life skills. Like, what life skill is more important than knowing how to grow your own food or to raise animals or something like that? Like, what life skill is more important than growing your own food or having growing your own food? There's no life skill more valuable than that. And some of the other ones you're talking about, off grid, living off grid. I mean, if you can provide all that for yourself, then there's no one that can rule over you. No one can use those things against you. And that's exactly why children aren't taught how to grow their own food in school, why they aren't taught, entrepreneurship or things like this, because that would make the position of ruler superfluous. And so yeah, I'm right there with you, and it's such an upside down society, which obviously that's why we're anarchists, right? That's why we're trying to build these alternative communities. So I guess any other closing thoughts?
I guess just take care of your own trash, because they got you with taking care of your trash.
Yep. Indeed. All right. Very good.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Was there any websites or anything else you wanted to plug before I let you go?
Well, the Jackalope Freedom Festival.com website will be up very shortly. Hopefully by the time this is out on your other channels. But besides that, just, the stateofanarchy.com. And you can check that out. Check out Jackalope.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and I'll have to get you back on in the future for an update. It doesn't seem like you're going to change course anytime soon, so maybe you'll, or I guess not. Maybe you'll at some point. Yeah, you'll do some other exciting stuff that we'll need to have you on to talk about at some point. So, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Not a problem. All right, guys, and there you have it. So as I wrap this up, please check out our sponsor, Liberated Attack Publications. I totally understand that funds might be tight right now since some of you might not be allowed to go to work because of the government. But if you're looking for some great anarchist reading material, we've got you covered. You can check out our full catalog by visiting liberatyattack.com, as well as our special bundles. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe both here on FascistTube and BitChute and LBRY, just in case our time here is limited, and I don't see how it can't be. So please do. The links can be found in the show notes below. The website is vonupodcast.com. If you're new to the subject of Vonu, consider browsing to our Start Here page. In addition to starting with Season 1 of the podcast, back in, I guess, January of 2017 was when we launched it. But, Season 1 was the philosophy of Vonu, which contains important background information and philosophical foundations. Season 2 is the practice of Vonu, when Rayo, its main proponent, was alive back from the the early 1960s to 1974 when he disappeared. And Season 3 is our current seasons where we develop this promising freedom strategy into the modern day. So please do go back. We always do recommend people go back to episode 1 of the podcast. But anyway, thanks so much for tuning in,